Good morning. In last week's class, we were talking about about the three main things that we want to distinguish in meditation, which are dullness, agitation, and general heaviness. And Pamonka Rinpoche is going on quite a quite a long tour of how does one recognize what subtle dullness is versus what we think is good meditation. And there were all these definitions that we gave, and I don't want to review all of it today. But the main thing is that there's a huge challenge that every meditator will face. And don't think you're immune. Okay. Don't think you're immune from it. And that is that when your meditation gets good and you do become somewhat focused on a single object, is that every meditator will fall into subtle dullness. And it's a trap and a trap is not the right word because it sounds like you can avoid it. But the thing is, every meditator will experience it because you have to learn what the difference is between bright-eyed, bushy-tailed meditation that has clarity, fixation, clarity, and what do we call it? NAR. We called it vibrancy, right? A kind of energy that is uplifting in the meditation. But it's not so much energy that it pushes us off the object. Because if we tighten down too much, then we're basically just putting too much water into the hose and it gets shot off, right? So because we don't want to move off the object, and this is a normal thing, right? We know that if we add too much energy and focus to our fixation, that it'll push us off the object. So we find that balance, and then we tend to just overcorrect just enough that we move into a place of subtle dullness, which feels good. It feels lovely. You're on the object. You feel like your meditation's going well, it's going smooth. And then you just get stuck. Because it's from there, you're not able to then elevate up the ladder to get to a place where you eliminate subtle dullness, where you eliminate subtle agitation, where then you get to a place where you can then actually get shamatha. Practiced, eased, focus, where your body and mind feel amazing, and you drop in it's just like you go, I'm going to meditate, bam, and you're there. You don't have to try. It's just, now we're doing a meditation on this object, and you don't have to do all the stuffs to get there. So it becomes a kind of warning from Pamonka Rinpoche to say, all right, let's just, now that your meditation is getting good, which is a great thing, now you need to watch out for other challenges, other problems. And that's why in the next term, we're going to be getting into the 9 stages of meditation. What are each of those stages look like? How does dullness and agitation look in those stages? And what do you do in those stages? The problem that you have in stage 1 requires different corrections. It requires a different focus. They're different tool set, basically. So as we finish this section, we learn about, how difficult it is to distinguish all of these. So here we go. Now we're going back to the text. Which one? All right. Let's see. First person that I see who's not a translator. Please turn on your cameras. There's 47 of you. Don't be shy. Anastasia, you're not shy. Let's start here with Dana.
Okay, thank you. Dana Chingwa Tramodang Tingzing Gi Kala Ne Chadang Sao Cha Yoban Dra Chir Tingin Zing Tang Teni Chakpar Cheka Sing.
Okay, this is kind of just what I said. Is that there's a very big problem. That's not exactly what problem means. Sorry, cha means part. Like in this place of meditative focus, okay? In this place, these two, right? Hitting Zen and subtle dullness, they're very, very difficult. They both have, let me see here. That's what it, sorry. All right, let me try this again. Ignore what I just said. We're gonna try this again. All right, both of these things, meditative focus and then subtle dullness, they both have fixation, chena, and selcha. Okay. The fixation, the necha, and then the selcha, you have fixation and clarity, right? But it's very, very difficult, ka, yewa, to distinguish between the two, right? So what he's saying is that when you get to that place, which I just mentioned, when you get to that place, it's very hard to tell whether you're having good meditation or you're in subtle dullness. And then we'll talk a little bit later how to, like, not in this class, but a little bit onwards later in the chapter, we're going to get into then what do you do as a correction to be able to tell if you're in subtle dullness? Like, what do you do? Like, am I having good meditation, or am I in this sort of like just the dial is just a little bit lower? It's just a little off, right? It's not completely turned up all the way. And if it's not turned up all the way, you won't make progress. You'll just hang out there and chill out there. And it feels good and it's nice and you can stay there for a long time in your meditation. All right, let's go on to the next line here. How about Persis? You're the next person on my list.
Sak ba laang na bak ki long kiu wa chak qin lin sak ki wei tu xem track ba yo pay na bo nga mang kéo cá cây té lá kiu na gộ rap la gom rap check so
Nak.
chén
Nakcha.
nắc cho chế ba gom gi nhã má khéng ba rẹ.
Nice. Reading's getting good.
Thank you.
Chingwa tramos sakpa lang. Sakpa, when you do a lot of subtle dullness, like sakpa, like when you pile up, let's say pile up hours and hours of subtle dullness, you can actually have an experience where you cut your breath out of your nose, where your breath will actually stop. Okay. And you can keep your mind for an entire day in that meditation. Okay. Your subtle dullness can become so good that you can stay in meditation for a really, really long time. And so you think you're making progress. And even your breath can stop. And so, what country is this? Buh. Does anyone know?
Tibet.
It's Tibet, right? So there were some practitioners previously in Tibet, right, who made this mistake. All right. And they were singing the praises of meditation by saying this. Lodrab la gom rab, meaning it's best letting go. Best letting go is best meditation. The best meditation is one where you just let go. And you've heard this before. We've heard this before. Like, oh, just let your mind go. Don't think of anything. Just relax. Go blank. Right? And this is a huge, and the thing is, I'm making a big deal about it, and you're like, oh, I'll be able to recognize it when I'm there. No. The point is that you won't recognize it. You know, you'll do your tantric sadhanas, you'll go into your retreats, and you'll think that you're having a really focused meditation, but you're just hanging out in subtle dullness. And in fact, you could even have this experience where your breath stops. How can you tell if you're having an actual kumbhaka or you're having a kumbhaka in subtle dullness? Right? And it's a really, really good question. And we'll talk about how to fix it later. But it's highly possible if you had that experience where your breath stopped, that you're not in a good meditative focus. You're just hanging out in Chingwa Tramo. You're just hanging out here. And so these people, these people of previous Tibet, like a long time ago, which is funny because it's not even that long ago. I just saw it on Instagram yesterday, right? I saw somebody say this on Instagram, not in Tibetan, but they said the same thing. They said, best just to let go in your meditation. Someone the other day said that you don't have to meditate to have deep spiritual realizations. And I was like, ooh, that's slightly dangerous. But they weren't saying it in a way that was like helpful. They were saying it in a way where they were criticizing meditation. you know, there are different types of practices you can do with your body to get yourself focused. But we'll talk about that later. But anyway, these people failed to grasp what the main point of meditation is. They just were like, the main point is not to get into a place where even you can get your breath to stop. Right? Anyhow, all right, moving on. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Let's keep on going. Oh, Roxanne, are you translating? No, you're not. Let's have you read this next verse. Please.
Sure thing. Jingwa tramola gontu truna trebu suk meki gyutsam tuang midroshin sendir yang jenye chewa tang shera miseltu drowe tun drowe drup tap chetu gompa tapu le majungwar su.
You should make mistakes on purpose so I can correct you. Good job. All right, so here we go. If you make this mistake, let's suppose that you do make this mistake in meditation and mistake subtle dullness for real meditation. Let's say you make this, okay? The result, all right? The result of this is that those meditations are a cause for two things. Sukh and sukme. What's sukh and sukme?
Form and formless realm.
Right, the form and formless realms. So there's subtle dullness, the result of subtle dullness, while the meditation is good, will result in a rebirth in the form realm or the formless realm, where it's impossible to, impossible is not, it's probably an exaggeration, but it's very, very difficult to have any more realizations in those realms. Because your mind is already in a very good place. You're in a good rebirth. You don't have a lot of suffering, if any at all. Right? So in this way, it becomes a cause to be born there. And if you studied the, what is it? The lion's dance meditation, we do a lot of this work to bring our minds to a subtle state. But then we move on from that. Like, get yourself focused and then move on. Stay there, but move deeper. So that's what happens in your next life. But what happens in this life? All right. What are some of the things that will happen in this life? You'll become forgetful of little things. Okay. Like, you'll just space out. Like, where did I put my keys? You know, like, you'll just start scratching your head and wonder where things are, or you won't remember a lot of things. Your intelligence will go down as well. All right. Share up will also go down. And the sung at the end of this sentence means that Trizon Rinpoche is saying that his Lama, Pabonka Rinpoche, said, pointed out, right? Is that doing all this will be nothing more than a means to achieve an animal rebirth. Okay. Like, Leme Jungwar, nothing more will arise if you meditate in subtle dullness, and just, it all becomes just a means for an animal rebirth, which seems a little weird because we just said the only result is form and formless realm. Okay. where is it? There's one word here that says it's like. A second here. Right. So in this way, he doesn't say, he uses the word tabu. It's like doing, and you're just doing something that for the purpose of becoming a mindless animal, is what he's saying. But he's basically comparing a mindless animal to a being in the form and formless realm. Because it's at those points, you're not doing anything really beneficial for your spiritual evolution. So the gist of it is learn about it and then learn how to recognize it. Because what will happen, and I'm going to say this over and over again, is what will happen is that you will get there and you will enjoy the meditation and you will think you're doing well. Everyone falls into that trap. And then you back off just a little bit and don't keep moving. And then you get stuck. It's almost like in the middle of a retreat, you should have an alarm that goes off that says, all right, start investigating your subtle dullness. I think I'm going to do that for my next retreat. Like, have an alarm that says, all right, check yourself. Are you progressing or are you sitting back again? Because it feels good and you don't want to do any more work. All right, let's move on. Gopani. Now for mental agitation, right? So we just finished subtle dullness. We finished his first description of it. We'll come back to it later in the chapter. Let's find out on the other side. Let's talk about agitation. Like, what does agitation look like? Kung Tule. Does anyone remember what book this is?
Is that the Compendium of Vices?
It is. Who wrote it?
I don't know.
Yeah. Hmm. Who wrote it? Deep to dee. It's actually the Compendium of Teachings on Higher Knowledge by Master Asanga. Just if anyone cares, if they want to go study it, it's a great book. So in Asanga's compendium on higher knowledge, he says the following. Let's have someone read it. It's not translating. Isabel, it's really good to see you, by the way. Here, Laura is looking down. She doesn't want to read. How about Veronica?
Gopani Kuntula Gotpachang Zena Dukpe Sam Me
Senme.
Senme Je Sujupa Do Chenki Char Tok Pe Sem Nam Pama Ziva Tezi Ne Kiva Du Kot Pe La Ka No.
Nice. Good job.
Thank you.
So here we go. Gopa Gangshena. What does agitation actually look like? You know, what are we talking about here? So first of all, it's a state of mind which is a state of mind which is considered part of a type of desire. Okay, dochak. So it's a part of desire. So it's considered one of the forms of desire, which goes after the signs of duk. What does duk mean? Dukpa. Like duk now. But I'm actually trying to trick you here. What does duk now mean?
Duknel is suffering, but here it could be both pleasant or unpleasant.
It's in this case, it means attractive, right? You're going after something that appears attractive. So dukpa means, in this case, you're going a part of your desire, so your mind, a state of mind where one of the forms of desire, your state of mind is considered a desirous mind, and it goes after things that you find attractive. Okay. In this state of mind, this desire that is always going after objects is a state of mind that knows no peace. So it's a mashiva. It's impossible to get peace from this kind of mind. And it basically is an action which cuts your ability to have shine. So it cuts apart your shine. It prevents you from arriving at shamatha. Okay. So on one side, your subtle dullness is preventing you from reaching shamatha because you're just hanging out because it feels good. The other side of it, of your agitation, is that your mind is attracted to objects of desire. Any object. You know, things you like, things you don't like, the argument you had last night with your partner, you know, anything that your mind goes to that finds it attractive. Not attractive in like, you know, it doesn't mean you have to like it. It's just that your mind goes there because it's attracted to going there. All right, that's what Asanga says. Let's see what Paboka Rinpoche says. How about Marina? Could you read the next line, please?
She sunt pa tar duk pe yul lam de chaki yulasem rovala chope yul duk pe semna perna la ma do kat I think this
Wait, where are you? I'm sorry, I got just slightly lost. Which word are you on? Did you just say Gart? Like
yes,
Dilgar?
I already got
Yeah, that's what I heard you say. Okay.
ta wur nim moj tepana ten mo ang tes nanva lenk
Lang. Clan.
yes, sorry. Tren pashin to do shaki yul in tu onkva je su tren pa shekva.
Good. So as we were saying above, so we have a couple of things. The mind flies off to an attractive object. Okay. Right. It goes off to an object of desire. So it's kind of like it goes off to an object of desire. It goes off to something you find beautiful. It goes off to an object of desire. And I like this expression, troa, like a centroa, like your state of mind that kind of just like, you know, when a bright light shines through a window and it just kind of scatters everywhere, right? And that's kind of the idea. Your mind is just scattering like light. And so that's what I'd like to think of it as. Like, there is a light. Your mind is like a light, but it goes off in all these different directions. It goes after desirous objects. It goes after things you find pretty, right? You know, anything that you find attractive to the senses or to your mind, whether you're angry or whether you're happy or whether you're sad or you're trying to, you know, plan the best thing to tell to that person who pissed you off, right? Whatever it is, you know, it's the object that we find attractive, whatever that is. That's what we go towards. And so the example of this, and this is a really powerful example. It's like, so you go and see during the day a dance, like a dance performance, right? Where everyone is dressed up like, I don't know, gods and goddesses. Like they're all dressed up incredibly beautiful. So you go to this afternoon performance during the day and you actually watch it. And then at night, those same images pop up in your mind. All right. So like you saw something beautiful during the day, and then at night before you go to sleep, you're not able to sleep because those images pop up in your mind. Like you just think about their beauty, or you're thinking about what they did. You're reviewing all of that. You're reviewing the plot of the performance, if there was one, if it was more like an opera or something like that. And that's the same thing in meditation. Like you're seeing something you already saw. Your mind just goes boop, goes off there, goes off here, flies off in all different directions. And he uses this word drempa, right, which means recollection. Like you recollect some object of desire, right? So it's like the wrong recollection, right? Earlier on, when we were talking about problem number 2, the recollection we were doing was come back to the object which you chose that you were going to go towards. In the sense of, this is my meditation object. Your drempa brought you back because you would go off. Now he's using drempa in a different way, that you remember some other object that you like and you go over there. So your drempa is actually working for you and against you. Your mind has the ability to remember every single thing that it ever has thought, everything it's ever done, everything it's ever perceived. Do you want to know what your meditations are normally like when you get into deep retreat? You start remembering every single thing you ever did, every little thing you ever saw. It's amazing. It's powerful. It's incredible. And it's not meditation. It's the process of becoming single-pointed, yes. So again, I want to remind everybody that if you're recognizing that you're having agitation when you're at this point, that's your meditation. So instead of seeing all of these things as obstacles, to see these things that happen as this is your meditation. This is what meditation is. Oh, but I can't stay in the object. That's right, because where your meditation is today is you're having, you're having drempas towards your chaki yuls. right? You're remembering all these other great things that your mind saw. So in that way, you can rejoice that your meditation is doing what it should be doing. And of course, you need to catch yourself in that and then use your other drempa to bring yourself back. You use your meditative drempa to come back to the object when you fly off to somewhere else. And then when we get into subtle agitation, how to recognize an object that's about to appear and how to stop it. Right? You're focused on your lama's eyes, you're focused on your sadhana, you're focused on your mantras. And then you feel the rumblings of last night's irritation, right? So that's what we have to learn to do. So the learning to stay on the object is the meditation. Don't get lost in, oh, I wasn't on the object. You're not going to be. Okay, get over it. You're not going to be. And that's okay. And that's the point. You're not going to be. So what's the meditation? Is we're working to develop the tools to be on that. And so all the different meditations we give are all designed to do that. But if you know the meta reason, like where you are in your process, then you can say, oh, this is the reason my Lama gave me this object was so I could recognize my subtle dullness, or I could recognize my subtle agitation, and then teach you to knock it off. All right. Next line. Let's see here. Moving a little bit faster than expected. How about Veronica? Did you read yet? You did? You four read? You read? Oh my God, no one has their camera on. How about Ludmila? How about you? You haven't read yet?
Rovatan Gopanila Chat Chete Tratavuyul Yitumi Onvala Narsempe Kapki Trovatan Shina Kompe Sepin Win Patsul Trim Sok Keveyul La Trovata Vuni Trovayin Yan Gopamin no.
Good. Just this one word, jinpa. Jinpa. Okay, so and now Pamoka Rinpoche goes, oh yeah, by the way, it's not exactly what I mean. He's kind of funny. He's like, this is what I was talking about, but not really. He said there's a big distinction between the two of flying off the object, the troa, and mental agitation. So he was kind of talking about them together, right? He called it a state of mind which goes towards an object of desire, right? How else did he say it up here? It wasn't in Arya Sanga's text, right? So he defines agitation as this, partially, right? A mind that goes flying off. But then he says, well, actually, there's a difference. There's a big difference between the mind flying off to other objects, and mental agitations, okay? So one way you could do it is your mind flies off. Let's see, it flies off to some kind of mind of negativity, like a mind of malice. Okay. Or it could go off to some other object, like, you know, someone we don't like. Uses the word draw here, like some kind of enemy. Okay. So you can move off to something negative, right? Like some kind of malice or some enemy you don't like, or in the sense of you don't like what someone did to you yesterday, and so you start thinking about it. Or your mind can fly off to some virtuous object. Gewa yula troa. Okay. Like what kind of virtuous object? Jinpa, giving, sultrim, morality, right? As we're trying to reach shamatha, right? So you have two different flying offs. You have a flying off that goes to negative objects, things you don't like. Or you could have some flying off to some kind of virtuous object, like the 6 perfections. Okay. And so what he says that the mind going to a virtuous object like that, we don't call it agitation. Kupamin, right? So this is an interesting distinction he's making, and we're going to get deeper into it. If your mind goes off to some non-virtuous object, and he's using an example of your enemy or some thoughts of malice, but I would also say, like, even things you like, I don't know, lunch, or the smell of your girlfriend's perfume, you know, something that's not a negative thing. I mean, I hope you like the way she smells. But anything that's not a virtuous object, okay, lunch that you like is not a virtuous object in and of itself. Yeah, it's going to keep you healthy, but it's not like thinking about the 6 perfections. All right. Maybe the perfume of your girlfriend is like the 6 perfections and you can make it that way. That's more of a higher practice. But the point is, he's saying that if you go off to an object that's not virtuous, that's flying off the object, right? That's one type of flying off the object. Huh. Roxana, I'm having a different opinion here of what I just said. Does this ni just refer to this part here? Or does this ni refer to this whole part?
I don't think it's that far.
I don't think it's that far either. But later on, I'm actually going through my I think we'll figure it out later. Because this part right here, Troa Yin Yang Gupa Min No, just means this flying off. This is what we call flying off, but this is not what we mean by agitation. But the question is flying off to a virtuous object just a kind of flying off? Because he just says flying off here. He says troa, right? I think based on the grammar here, I think he's meaning this ni is the whole section here. These are two options. These are two options of the way that mind can fly off, but that's not what we mean by mental agitation. We'll find out later. We'll study a little bit more. But okay, but for you translators and for you nerds, these are the things you have to look at and then maybe have to put on the shelf. Because this ni, does it just refer back to this section? There's a reason why there's a comma here, a she, right? Normally the ni would stop here, but because we have a tongue, it could also be because of the structure. Troa, troa, troa. Okay. I'm just saying there's a possibility here. But what he's saying, the most important point is he's making a distinction between your mind just going to another object and what mental agitation is. Got it? There's some distinction we're going to get later of why mental agitation is not just your mind moving to some other object or being attracted to some other object. There's a distinction. Let's go discover what that distinction is. All right. Since no one has their, let's see here. Jolene, you haven't read yet. Let's try you.
Ona pro go ni ka ching na ki ha ko in mo ko pa ko na pa ko du jo pa su jing je na.
Nice. Good job. All right. So on the other hand here, Ona, or let's get well then, admittedly, you said that troge, these two, flying off in mental agitation, both cut your shamatha, shineki parchoyinma. Like it's an obstacle to your practice of quietude, right? Aren't both of these those things? Aren't they both obstacles? It seems like that mind flying off to another object is an obstacle, and then your mental agitation or the mind dropping into agitation is also an obstacle. But then why the heck did you mention that only agitation is the obstacle, excuse me? Why kona, right? Why is it only the obstacle? Like, what are we doing here? Right? So basically what he's doing is he's guiding us in one way and then he's going to go sideways, which is a total galupa way of teaching. All right. He gets us to agree to one thing. And then he's going to say, well, is this really what we mean by all of this? Because there's probably, I don't know what's going to say next. Well, I do because I studied it. I'm teaching it, but what is it going to say next? Like to our normal minds, what we think agitation is and what we think troa, flying off to another object is, they sound like the same things. Well, my mind is agitated and it flies off to other objects. They're both obstacles, right? And then we all agree to it. And now Pabonka is saying, well, not exactly. Let's see what he says here. Let's see, who would like to read? Let's go back to, yeah. How about Marina? Could you read again, starting here?
Kepa Nikpe Yutan Shetan Yola Rovani Nyunk Watan Yun La Nam Shak Gyun Tu Do Taki Yula Droche Vena Mank Ve Dok Nessa Yela Vala Zor Ter O Pakona Sung Pain.
Nice. So this is what Pabonka Rinpoche says. And I'm not sure. It's, well, you can figure out yourself. All right, objects of desire. All right. And, okay. Objects of, for things we don't like. Troani. Our mind flying off to things that we dislike and virtuous objects. Okay. Nungwa. Okay. The time when we do this, when we go to things that are very virtuous or things that we don't like, the times that we do that are relatively few and don't last very long, are short in time, short in continuity. All right. So what he's saying is that, yeah, your mind can go off to something virtuous. Your mind can go off to something like things you don't like, but it happens infrequently and less frequently, and the time is short. He said, however, our mind flies off to objects of desire constantly. Okay. Right. So he's making a big distinction here. So let's talk about it in a second. Let's finish the line and I'll talk about it. So first of all, your mind flies off to objects of virtue and things we dislike less frequently than it does to objects of desire. Okay. And because there's so many of them, okay, this is the principal reason why, and it's so easy to do so, this is the principal reason why we mention agitation here as the obstacle. So what he did to us is that he defined agitation as flying off to objects of desire. And anytime your mind flies off to something virtuous, like, oh, this happens in meditation a lot or in retreat a lot, it flies off to all the good projects that you're going to do in the future. When I get out of retreat, I'm going to start these 10 projects in ACI. And then I come out of retreat, I tell everybody, and they all are like, Tim, that's impossible. They're like, too many things to do. Or your mind goes off to something you dislike. But he's saying that happens less than your mind just going off to objects of desire. So he's making distinctions, and he's saying that's mental agitation. And what I'm going to suppose he's going to say is if you can stop your mind moving to objects of desire, you'll naturally just stop moving your mind to things you dislike and things that are virtuous. Maybe. This will clear up, I promise. So what he's trying to do, and this is the Tibetan way of teaching, is that he gets us to agree to things and then gives us these really like, this line here, like this is where I was going to end class today. So you could think about it, right? So you can go home and think, all right, so agitation is flying off, troa, moving to objects of desire. That's what mental agitation is. What it's not is flying off to objects of virtue or things that we dislike. Why? Because those happen less frequently. Is that a good argument? Is that a good argument? Because it happens less frequently, therefore it's not mental agitation. It's only mental agitation when you go off to objects of desire. All right, we got 3 minutes. We're going to keep going. And I didn't put this line because I didn't think we were going to get this far. Good job, guys. All right, next line. How about super fast reader? How about Roxana? Can you do this last line so we can get through it?
Pena, shine gompana, yulyi tuong mi wong la troa tang, jintong tang, chak tselwa, sok trempa tabu kewala, troa nika, shine gompei, kapsu, semnepa, la partu, chope na, tetak, kak göso.
Okay. Okay. All right. So when we're engaged in the practice of shamatha, we're working to get there. All right. Here we go. Here are the two. Right? Troa Nika. What are the two? The first one is some object you find attractive, or recalling some good deed we did before, sharing what we have with others, prostrations, etc. Okay. He said these two, right? In both of these cases, okay, in both of these cases, the mind is being interrupted. And so we should put a stop to both of them. Gakuso, all right? He's basically, what he said was, I'm going to make a distinction here between mental agitation and flying off. And then he says, well, actually, they're all interruptions to our meditation. They're all obstacles to our shamatha. So we should stop all of them. All right. But what I'd like you to think about is, why did he make the distinction in the first place? Like, what's the point of making a distinction between objects of desire, objects of virtue, and things we don't like? What's the purpose then of saying, well, these two, objects of virtue and things we don't like, we don't go to them as much as we go to objects of desire. So what we're talking about then is objects of desire are mental agitation. And these are just, general moving off to other objects. He makes all those distinctions. And then he says, well, duh, all of them are obstacles to your shamatha, so you need to eliminate all of them. All right. And we'll get an answer later. But I wonder, like, think about it yourself. And this is the fun part of translation and learning, is why? Why did he make the distinction? Any guesses in the 1 minute we have over? Anastasia says, if we get the biggest problem, then the smaller ones go away automatically. That's possible. Well, that's interesting. Persis says there's emotion that arises from them. That'd be an interesting investigation. Like, what kind of emotion arises with virtuous objects? What kind of emotion arises from things we don't like? And then what kind of emotion arises from duchaks? That there could be something in there as well. Cool. Think about it. Meditate on it. Think about why he made the distinction and then told us it doesn't matter. They're all obstacles. Right. Cool. All right. Thank you all for joining. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon, day, nighttime rest. I will see you next week live from Barcelona at same time on Wednesday, 6 a.m. Arizona. I have no idea what time that is in Barcelona. Just use standard Arizona time and you can figure it out. Okay. Next Wednesday. And then we're going to have a break until I think September. And then we'll start up again with ACI 12 and the rest and the continuing with this chapter. So thanks, translators. Thank you, recorders. Thank you, everyone, for making it possible. And yeah, have a great day. And let's say goodbye to each other.
Thank you, Tim Lam. Bye-bye.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Gracias. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.